Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Harvard Business School Alumni Angels webinar series. My name is Steve Kirshner, and I'm going to be your host today. For anyone unfamiliar with the HBS Alumni Angels Association, we're one of the largest alumni clubs of the Harvard Business School, promoting angel capital and offering selected entrepreneurs an opportunity to present their businesses to qualified accredited investors. We have over 1,000 members in 16 chapters worldwide. We are incredibly lucky today to have today's guest, Seiler Tucker. Michelle is a serial author and has just released her third book entitled Exit Rich, which she'll be talking about today. She's an authority on buying, selling, and improving businesses, as well as increasing revenue streams. A formidable force in her industry, Michelle on average obtains a 20 to 40% higher selling price for her clients. Let that sink in for a moment. Her striking track record proves her persistence and dedication to creating win-win situations for both her buyers and sellers. Michelle is also author of Think and Grow Rich Today and Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth, and has appeared in Forbes, on CNBC, Fox Business, and has a podcast called Exit Rich. She's also been a celebrity judge on Pitch Tank, along with Steve Forbes and Whole Foods CEO Jack McKay. Michelle lives in and joins us today from New Orleans, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Michelle Seiler Tucker. Michelle?
Thank you so much, Steve. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, Molly. And thank you for all the Harvard alumni for joining us today. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to talk about how to build a sustainable, scalable, and most importantly, a sellable business. So my book that's coming out, like Steve just talked about, is Exit Rich. And I'm so happy to say that Steve Forbes has endorsed Exit Rich and Sharon Lecter is my co-author. So we're going to talk about how to exit rich today. Just a little bit more about me. I do specialize in buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. I partner with business owners, investing my core capital, my core competencies, resources, and really fix businesses, help put my clients on a grow to sell, a build to sell model. And we also buy businesses and flip them, sell businesses and merge businesses. On average, I close about 98% of all offers we write. And we typically get our clients 20 to 40% higher selling price and sometimes even more. So we also have, I'm the founder of Seiler Tucker Academy, founder of Club CEOs. And like I said, my core competency is buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. I personally have sold over 500 companies and my team has sold over 1,000. But my proudest accomplishment is raising my daughter, Arabella Ashiana Tucker, who by far is more complicated than any transaction I've ever done. So what we're going to talk about today is people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. When I wrote my very first book in 2013 called Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth, I did the research and learned that 95% of all startups within the first 1 to 5 years will go out of business. The first 1 to 5 years. Now, that's pretty much common sense. Everyone knows that. However, when I did the research for Exit Rich, I was flabbergasted to learn that the business landscape has flip-flopped. It's actually changed dramatically. Now, only 30% of startups will go out of business, only 30%. However, out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business for 10 years or longer, 70% of those companies will go out of business, 70%. Those are horrible statistics facing baby boomers and businesses that have been in business, like I said, for over 10 years. Now, you hear about the big public companies all the time in the media. Toys R Us been in business 75 years, goes out of business. Kmart, Steinmart, Pier 1. The Disney stores are closing. Godiva Chocolate closes down 1,500 locations. GNC is closing down 900 locations. But what the media doesn't talk about are all the private businesses on every street corner, in every town, in every state across our great nation. These business owners, unfortunately, are exiting poor. They're having to sell for pennies on the dollar, close their business, or even worse, file bankruptcy. And many times when business owners file bankruptcy, they're not just losing their business assets, they're losing their personal assets too, because so many business owners commingle assets, which pierces the corporate veil and they lose that protection. So it's really my mission, my passion to help save as many of these business owners as possible. Like I said, it used to be that gosh, if you were in business 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to be in business forever. But unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. Now, another startling statistic that are facing, baby boomers and business owners is that according to Steve Forbes, 8 out of 10 businesses will not sell. Think about that. It's 80% of the businesses on the market will not sell. Only 20% of businesses are selling. So these are really startling statistics as well. So what I always do with my clients is I like to take them on what I call help them plan their exit strategy using the ST GPS exit model. The number one reason why these businesses are not selling is because business owners don't think about selling until a catastrophic event has occurred, whether that's internal or external. Internal can be health issues, partner disputes, divorce, death, unfortunately. External could be this pandemic that we've been stuck in for the last year and a half. And trying to sell during a catastrophic event is the worst time to sell your business because it's typically not doing well, it's trending downward, and you're not going to maximize value. The best time to sell your business is when your business is in its prime and doing well. So let's talk about the GPS exit model because, it's really important. I always tell my business owners, it's all about mindset. So many business owners are like, this business is my baby, this business is my family. The problem is the business is not your baby. The business is your most valuable asset. I had a sweet lady call me not too long ago. Her husband dropped dead from a heart attack, left her with a mountain of debt and wanted this. She's like, can you sell the business? I couldn't sell the business because he didn't really have a business. He had a job. He had no employees, no processes. Everything was in his head. So when he died, the business died. And that's what we're trying to help business owners set their family up for success. So number one, when you want to drive somewhere, what's the first thing you do? You pull out your phone, you go to Google Maps, and you plug in your destination. Right? If you don't plug it in your destination, you have no idea where you're driving to. You have no idea where you're going. And that's the issue with most business owners and why businesses don't sell is because business owners don't have a destination. They're driving around in circles, up and down the financial hills to end up exiting poor. So the first thing is really determine your destination. What is your desired sales price? What is your end game? Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. So let's pick a price. Let's say you want to sell your company for $20 million. A lot of my clients get hung up on the number. Don't get hung up on the number. Pick a number. We can always adjust it along the way. So let's say you want to sell for $20 million. The next component in the GPS exit model is to know your current location. In other words, know your current evaluation. So many business owners have no idea what their business is worth today. And it's imperative to know what your business is worth every year. I just met with a business owner, been in business 40 years. He has never had a business evaluation. So it's really important to know what that business is worth. It's financial suicide not to have an annual valuation checkup. There are events to increase valuation. There are events to decrease valuation. So, it's crazy to me that we go to the doctor once a year to get an annual physical, but we don't take our most valuable asset and get an annual valuation checkup. So let's say you want to sell for $20 million. Let's say today you are $5 million. The next thing you need to determine is time frame. What is your time frame? Let's say you want to do this in 10 years. Now you need to identify, well, who will your buyers be? There's 5 different types of buyers. And the reason why I say buyers and not buyer is because so many business owners come to me and say, Michelle, can you represent me with this one buyer? And I'm like, no, that's not in your best interest. And the reason for that is because we have to come in and we have to evaluate the business on 6 different methods, including the 6 Ps, which we'll get into shortly. Plus, most businesses need financial house cleaning. So we have to get in there and clean up the financials, help the business operate on all 6 cylinders, put all the items into a data room to do due diligence. And then guess what? The likelihood of that one buyer closing is probably slim to none. So we always want to make sure we have backup buyers, number one. Number two, How do we maximize value if we can't create competition because we have one buyer? And then the next step in this component is really determine your why. Why do you want to sell your business for $20 million? You know, I always tell my clients, you really need a strong, powerful why to keep you in the game, to keep you motivated, to keep you weathering all the different financial storms that come our way. So let's talk about the 5 different types of buyers. First and foremost, 90% of buyers are first-time buyers. They don't buy $20 million companies. They buy ice cream stores and coffee shops and smaller type restaurants. Then a second type of buyer is sophisticated buyers. Sophisticated buyers are those serial entrepreneurs. They're industry agnostic. They chase EBITDA. And then the third type of buyer is what I call strategics and competitives. Strategics and competitives will typically pay the highest multiple because they're buying synergies. They're buying synergies that are going to catapult their current business to the next level. Plus, they take advantage of economies of scale, which decrease overhead, increase EBITDA, and most importantly, they look at the infrastructure, the business they're buying, to see what they can cut out because they already have a current infrastructure. So strategics and competitors typically will pay the highest multiple. And then we have turnaround specialists. Turnaround specialists buy distressed assets. They don't buy $20 million companies. The last type of buyer is private equity groups. These are PEGs. They buy 2 ways based on platforms and add-ons. Platforms is, let's say they want to get into food manufacturing. They won't even consider a food manufacturing business for less than $3 million in EBITDA. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. But let's say they're already into food manufacturing. Then they'll look at smaller type food manufacturing businesses, what we call add-ons, for less than that $1 million in EBITDA. So you got to really look at your business, determine your desired sales price and ask yourself, which buyers are best for your type of business. Now, I will tell you, whenever businesses have an EBITDA of over $1 million, we typically have so many strategics, competitors, and private equity groups on those type of businesses, because I always say there's more buyers for good businesses than there are good businesses to buy. Now, the next thing you need to know when you're planning your exit strategy is, what is their buying criteria? So let's say you want to sell for $20 million. What is their buying criteria? What are the synergies they're looking for? What will they pay more money for? Why will they outbid everyone else? And you really want to build your business to meet their specific criteria. The other thing you got to ask yourself is, gosh, if I'm trying to sell for $20 million, now that you already have your plan, we need to reverse engineer it and ask yourself, where does the gross revenues have to be? Where's the COGS, the operating cost, the operating expenses, and most importantly, the EBITDA? Where does the EBITDA need to end up at if I want to sell for $20 million? And I will tell you, depending upon your synergies, you need to have an EBITDA of about 3.5 to 4.5 million, depending upon, again, those synergies. So what type of business do you own? You can go to Seiler Tucker Academy, and there's a quiz there that asks, what type of business do you own? And there's different type of businesses. There's what I call the wife who called me about selling her husband's business. He had a construction business. I call that the one-man show business. He had no employees. The business was 1,000% dependent upon him, and the business is not sellable. So you really have to look and ask yourself, what type of business do you own? Do you own a small business with 3 or 4 or 5 employees? Is the business dependent upon you? Can the business operate without you? Do you have a larger business with 50 to 100 employees, more in middle market? You work on the business, not in the business. You really should identify what type of business you own. And again, I encourage you to take that quiz at Seiler Tucker Academy. So now let's talk about what I call the infrastructure of your business. I've been doing this a little over 20 years, over 1,000 transactions, and very seldom have I ever ran across businesses that operate on what I call all 6 cylinders, all the ST6 Ps. So first and foremost, one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make is they've created a glorified job in which they go to work at every day versus a business that actually works for them. So the number one component is people. So the first P is people. And I find a lot of business owners are working in their business, not on their business. A lot of entrepreneurs, always say, gosh, if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. Well, that's not exactly true. Entrepreneurs have to focus on their strengths, hire their weaknesses, and make sure that you have the right people in the right seats and ask the who question. Who handles accounting, marketing, legal? Who handles manufacturing, logistics, quality control, human resources? The clue is that you should never be next to the who, because we want the business to run without you. Buyers are looking to buy a business, not a job. And the reason we put people first is because it is the number one component. You will never grow a business without people. You don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business. And then second is product. Ask yourself about your product. When we talked about 70% of businesses going out of business after being in business for 10 years, that's because of one major reason. Business owners stop doing what I call AIM, AIM, always innovate and market. Business owners stop innovating. Toys R Us did nothing different in 75 years. So you always have to innovate. You always have to market. Extremely important. And product, ask yourself, is your product on the way up or on the way out? Do you service a certain niche? And if you have an Amazon, then you need to sell. If you have a Blockbuster, then we have to pivot. And it's always important to have multiple revenue streams. Processes. Do you have processes in place? I find that a lot of businesses design their processes around the owner's agenda instead of designing the processes around the customer experience. Processes must be well documented. They must be designed with the customer experience in mind. They must be productive, efficient, and well documented. You need those policy and procedure manuals, those SOP checklist, employee handbooks, non-competes, employment contracts. We're selling a business for $70 million right now. And they have over 300 employees, but they don't have SOP checklist and policy and procedure manuals for every single department. So that's what we're working on right now. The second P is proprietary. Proprietary is the number one value driver. Proprietary will take you from a 5 multiple to a 7 to 8 to a 10 and even higher. So there's several components to proprietary, but number one is how well branded are you? You have to ask yourself, how well branded is your business? The more well branded you are, the more I can sell your company for, as long as your brand is relevant in the mind of the consumers. Meaning, is anybody paying any money for Blockbuster? So the most valuable brand in the world right now is Apple, for $359 billion. That's just a brand. That's not cash flow, trademarks, assets, or anything else. That's just the brand. So build your brand, build your value. Trademarks are huge. Trademark your name, your slogan, your logo, your products. We have a client right now whose business we're selling that has 12 different products. And they have a trademark, a federal trademark on each one of these products. Each one is exclusive to a different retail chain. One is exclusive to Walmart, one's Target. So the biggest mistakes I see business owners make with trademarks is they get a state trademark, but they never check the federal database. So I've seen businesses in business for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden receive the cease and desist letter in the mail, and they have to stop using that company name. So we want to make sure you protect your IP. Also, patents are huge. If you ever watch Shark Tank, every single shark asks about patents, and their offers are always contingent upon proving that you have a patent. We sold a business for $18 million. Business wasn't making that much, but they had 18 patents. Databases are also big. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. And WhatsApp was hemorrhaging money, but they had a synergy. That's what we're talking about right now, are synergies. They had 1 billion users, and Facebook knew they could ROI and monetize that. And then contracts are really valuable. Manufacturing contracts, distribution, vendor, franchisor contracts, exclusivity. Client contracts are the most valuable of all, especially if you have a subscription model with residual income coming in, with recurring revenue. Here's the biggest mistake that I see with contracts. A lot of business owners don't have the transferability clause. 98% of all sales are asset sales, not stock sales. So if your buyer doesn't agree to a stock sale, and let's say you have 2,000 clients, you're not going to go to 2,000 clients to get consent to transfer. So let's be proactive and get that 2-sentence transferability clause in your contracts. Celebrity endorsements are huge. We have a client that has products with Oprah. Any radio personalities, any radio celebrities that are endorsing your skincare company, your diet company, they can only endorse one vertical at a time because otherwise they lose credibility. And then e-commerce businesses, any of those top positions that you have on Etsy, Wayfair, Amazon are extremely valuable, and strategics will pay a lot more money for that. So these are your proprietary assets, again, that will increase your multiple. The next one is patrons. This is your customer base. And most businesses follow the 80-20 rule, where 80% of their revenue comes from 20% of their clients. The problem with that is customer concentration. We once sold a business, well, actually, we'll show you that case study later, that had 65% of the revenue tied up in the BP contract, and I'll tell you how we were able to get around that. But you really want to focus on customer diversification versus customer concentration. The other thing that's important is if you've been in business 20, 30, 40 years, customers are aging out. So when we talk about innovation, it's not just innovation with products, it's also innovation with your customer base too, to make sure that your products and services are being able to go, you're being able to attract those other generations of buyers. We have to get back to the basics and ask our clients, what do you want? What do you need? How can I make it easier for you to do business with us? Whoever makes it easiest for the consumer to do business with them is the company that's winning. Amazon is winning because they practically make it easy. You can practically buy a horse on Amazon and have it delivered in 2 days. So we got to get back to the basics on that. The last P, the most important P to all entrepreneurs, are profits. And I always say profits are never the problem. Lack of profits are never the problem. It's always a symptom of not operating on one of the other 5 Ps. Clients come to me all the time and say, Michelle, I have a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem. No, you have a process problem. So lack of profits, again, are never the problem. If you're operating on all 5 Ps, you're going to be extremely profitable. So ask yourself, what are your weakest Ps? What are your strongest Ps? Now let's talk about the human and business life cycle. So the human and business life cycle are very similar. Think about this. When a business idea is born, where does it go? It goes in the incubator. 95% of business ideas never make it out of the incubator. So the newborn is in the incubator, the business is in the incubator. 1948, I'm going to compare the human and business life cycle to the Toys R Us story. In 1948, Charles Lazarus opens up a baby furniture store in Washington, D.C., just as the baby boom begins. So from newborn, what do? We go from newborn, from the incubator, to an infant. What does an infant need? An infant baby, an infant, and an infant business. They need a tremendous amount of money and 24-hour supervision. In 1957, Lazarus opened his first store and modeled it after a supermarket, first used the name Toys R Us. In 1957, Lazarus had 4 stores. Then we go from infant to toddler. A toddler still needs 24-hour supervision and a tremendous amount of money, right? So any of you that have children are going through the Turbo 2s, Turbo 3s, Turbo 4s, this is what it looks like. Same thing with a taller business. In 1969, Toys R Us adopts Jeffrey the giraffe as its brand mascot. In 74, Lazarus files bankruptcy, leading to the restructuring. He sells off all the unprofitable divisions. 1978, Toys R Us goes public. So after toddler, we go to teenager. Now, teenagers still need supervision, but not 24-hour supervision, but they still take a lot of working capital, right? Same thing with a teenage business. In 1983, the first Kids R Us clothing store opens. 94,000 stores are worldwide. 96, Babies R Us opens. 98, Walmart beats Toys R Us for the title of the top US toy seller for the very first time. So you go from teenager to young adult. Young adult, you don't need as much supervision and you don't need as much money. You're starting to figure it out. In 2001, the company moves its corporate campus to New Jersey for $36 million. Now you go from young adult to adult. Adult is when you're in your prime. You've figured it out. You don't need any supervision. You don't really need near as much working capital. This is when you're at the height of your game. This is the best of the best. In 2015, Toys R Us beats their biggest competitor, FAO Schwarz, leading to the permanent closure of their Fifth Avenue store. In 2016, revenue reached an all-time high, the highest, $11.5 billion. Now, what happens after adult? Senior citizen. Pay attention to the timeline here, 2016. So you go from adult to senior citizen. September 19, 2017. 2 years later, was it 2 years later? Yes. 2016, 2017. That's why I want you to pay attention to the timeline. 1 year later, Toys R Us files bankruptcy. After senior citizen, then what happens? Unfortunately, death. Death. 2 years later, after $11.5 billion in revenue, 2018, Toys R Us closes 800 stores. And August 5th of 2018, they close all 1,500 stores in 35 countries within 2 years. So you can be in your prime and die within 2 years, as in the case of Toys R Us. Now there's rebirth in a business. Toys R Us is starting over saying, we're the new kids on the block. We're going to open up smaller boutique stores. Guess what? They reopened 2 stores. And since they've closed all stores again. So Toys R Us has died again, unfortunately. So ask yourself, what cycle is your business in? Are you in a young adult? Are you in a prime? Are you senior citizen? Really important to know this. Again, 70% of businesses fail due to lack of aim. Always innovate and market. Toys R Us failed because of lack of innovation and due to not operating in all 6 Ps. Let's go over what I call a near-death experience. Here's a company that called me several years ago to sell their business. Husband and wife working about 14 hours a day, 1 employee. A graphics company specializes in graphics for first responders, police cars, ambulances, fire trucks, etc. This company was operating on about 3 of the 6 Ps. They had no people, they had no processes, and they really didn't have too much proprietary. But they had a really good reputation. They were known for their high quality graphics. They were known for the artwork, and they were turning down about 6,000 clients a year. That's 6,000 clients a year. And they were working out of their garage. So what I did, the business is not sellable. If I pull the husband and wife out of the business, by the way, that's me standing next to them at their company in Texas. If I pull them out of the business, there is no business. So what I did is I partnered with them, invested my money, resources, expertise, took them from under $1 million to a multi-million-dollar business. This gentleman told me, Michelle, I can't grow the business because I don't have the business acumen to do so. Not true. We hired about 25, 30 people. We hired a COO, leased a bunch of equipment. Like I said, took them out of the garage into a business. This gentleman and his wife come up with more ideas, inventions, because he does have the business acumen. But when you're working in your business and not on it, it's very difficult to grow your business and come up with those ideas. So let's talk about business evaluations real quick. Here's required financials. I know it's a long laundry list, but when we look at valuations, we have to look at tax returns, profit and loss statements, cash flow statements, bank statements, huge list. Projections, work in progress. This is extremely important. And we have our own model that we work with. We evaluate businesses on 6 different methods that we'll go over shortly. But a lot of times, what holds us up in selling a business or evaluating a business is collecting all this data. So it's really important to make sure that you have all your financials in order. And in many cases, buyers require audited financials. So one of the biggest steps in evaluating a business is recasting the financials. A lot of business owners run personal expenses through the business, such as auto, travel, cars, meals, entertainment, family members working in the business, remodeling. So we want to make sure we capture all the personal expenses and the non-recurring expenses. One of the biggest issues that I find is that business owners have been doing this for so long that they don't really keep good records. And so when it comes time to evaluate their business, they have no idea what personal expenses are running through the business or what non-recurring expenses they have. So I always suggest that you keep a spreadsheet and, for every year, month to month, and make sure you document those personal expenses. Make sure that you document those non-recurring. Non-recurring could be if you own the real estate, you had to replace a roof and it cost you 50 grand. That's non-recurring. So don't hide cash. I think everyone here knows that, not to hide cash. So maximizing value on the sale of your business. Valuations are more of an art rather than a science, and it's not one size fits all. SaaS businesses are typically the only industry that are calculated a multiple of gross revenues. All other industries are typically a multiple of EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and we call that adjusted EBITDA when we normalize the financials. These are 6 different methods that we look at. It's not one size fits all. So we look at the asset approach, historical earnings, market approach, future earnings, discounted cash flow, and most importantly, the 6P method. When businesses have over $1 million in EBITDA, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, we know we're going to have a tremendous amount of buyers for those businesses. In the history, we've had hundreds upon hundreds of buyers for one business that has EBITDA over $1 million. And we know ahead of time what buyers are looking for what synergies, what buyers are willing to pay more for certain synergies, what buyers can take advantage of economies of scale. Like for instance, we're selling a manufacturing plant. They have one distribution center. Cost them about $5 million a year to operate. We have a manufacturing buyer that has distribution centers all over the United States. The first thing they're going to do is cut that $5 million distribution center, which will decrease overhead and increase EBITDA from day one of closing. So how do you maximize value? Maximize value by evaluating the synergies, bringing the buyers who are willing to pay top dollar for those synergies, and creating that bidding war. Here's an example of a oil manufacturing business that we were evaluating and working with. They had a lot of trouble and had to restructure in previous years. And I know the spreadsheet is cut off, but if you can see, it was 2018, 2016, 17, 18, and 19. They went from 3.5 million all the way to 33 million. And if you can see the EBITDA at the bottom, they got up to a little over 9 million. So this business, let me just go back. You can see the add backs. You can see what the gross revenue is. Some of the adjustments we made with advertising, accounting, consulting fees, etc. All the adjustments that we were able to make, and which got us to the adjusted EBITDA. And just to run through this valuation really quickly, because we don't have a whole lot of time. So industry standards in the energy business, oil business, low is 3, high is 4, average multiple is 3.5, and their average 2-year EBITDA was 6.421. Now, some buyers will only look at 12 months trailing. Some buyers will look at 3 years. Buyers try to do what's best for them. I do what's best for my sellers. But you can see the average multiple, the average EBITDA here was 6.4, and the low was 18 million to the high was 24 million. So the average EBITDA, so we're at a range between 24 million to 27 million for this company based upon our weighted average. However, when we look at the 6P approach, this company operated at a 5 level on all the P's. They had a huge management team in place, all their policies and procedures were intact. The product, they were in well, the oil sector, everybody knows it's a very volatile industry. We got them to diversify in different industries, which they did do. We've worked with this company for years. Proprietary, they got tremendous amount of proprietary. They have lots of patents, patrons, profits, etc. So based upon the valuation on the 6Ps, our range is between 36 million to 42, so significantly higher than evaluating them without considering these synergies. In addition to that, when we go to market for businesses that have over $1 million in EBITDA, depending upon the industry, we typically go to market without a price because, again, we're creating a bidding war. So we create a bidding war because it's 3 out of 5 buyers will pay top dollar for synergies. Here's a case study. This is an oil manufacturing business I was talking about earlier that operated on all 6Ps except for Patreons. We appraised this business for $9.3 million. They had customer concentration. 65% of their revenue was tied up in a BP contract. 65, sorry about that. Slides are jumping. 65% of the revenue, 60% of the revenue was tied up in the BP contract. We had over 500 buyers for this business. We got several LOIs within just a few weeks of engagement, but most of the buyers all had contingencies, clawbacks, earnouts, seller financing components, all contingent upon the BP contract. And so our sellers obviously didn't want to move forward with any of those LOIs because they didn't like the clawbacks and the earnouts, et cetera. So we were able to finally find a strategic and not really a competitor, strategic who has similar products and services, but different. And this strategic had been trying to get into BP for decades and was never able to get their foot in the door. And he's like, we're going to outbid everybody else. Anyway, so he offered $15 million for 70% of the business. There were 2 partners. He kept one partner on with a consulting agreement and their benefits. So that's 129% more than what that business appraised for. And this is what we do. This is how we're able to create bidding wars. So Steve Forbes, who we talked about earlier, says it's stunning that so many business owners end up leaving so much equity on the table when they want to cash out. That's why Exit Rich will be a gold mine for these entrepreneurs. Sharon Lechter is my co-author. Sharon Lechter wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. She's a 5 times New York Times bestselling author, a CPA, financial literacy expert, and the advisor to many different presidents. Sharon Lechter's husband is an intellectual property attorney. She writes a mentor's corner after each one of my chapters in Exit Rich from her perspective of being in the industry for years and years and years. And so these were some of the testimonials. Brian Tracy, Les Brown, Tom Hopkins, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Brad Sugars from Action Coach, and Grant Cardone's team have given us glowing testimonials. So Exit Rich is not just about selling your business. It's about building a business that's sustainable and scalable. And when you're ready to sell, you actually have a sellable asset, since 80% of the businesses in the market don't sell. These are some bonuses that we're offering. Exit Rich is launching June 22nd. And we have great bonuses right now for anyone. You can take a screenshot of this. Anyone who buys Exit Rich before the launch date. And so, when you invest $500, when you buy 3 copies of Exit Rich for $74, you'll receive a 30-minute consultation. Anyway, these are different bonuses, and you can find all of these at exitrichbook.com. The other thing that we're giving for anybody who buys Exit Rich and goes to exitrichbook.com for $24.79, which is less than Amazon, we will email you the digital download immediately. We will send the hardcover to your doorstep for no additional cost. We will give you a lifetime membership into the Exit Rich Book Club, where there's video content, me doing deep dives in these different techniques and strategies that I've been teaching for the last 20 years in the trenches, plus documents to operate your business, documents to sell your business, sample employee handbooks, policy and procedure manuals, SOP checklists, sample letter of intents, purchase agreements, due diligence checklist, and closing docs. All these documents are there for your review and download. Everything you need to operate and sell your business for your review and download is there for no additional cost. If you went to your attorney to recreate all these documents, it would cost you between $40,000 to $50,000. I know I've spent a tremendous amount of money on all these documents. We're also providing a free 30-day membership into Club CEOs, which is an entrepreneurship mastermind where we do Q&As, hot seats, and really help business owners build a sustainable, scalable business that they will have a sellable asset when they're ready. This is my contact information. So contact me, Michelle at SeilerTucker.com. Make sure you copy acquisitions at SeilerTucker.com. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. And again, that's exitrichbook.com. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Michelle. Well, thank you so much for that incredibly practical review. Like you say, starting with the end in mind, how to maximize your exit by really improving your business in a lot of different ways, and giving our audience such a practical approach. I'm looking at some of the questions coming in. The first one is here. What are some of the key things that one should look for when they're selecting an M&A advisor?
So great question, Steve, and thank you again for having me. So great question. First and foremost, you want to make sure you get a mergers and acquisitions advisor that has a tremendous amount of experience. You want an M&A advisor, not a business broker. Big difference. Business brokers sell small businesses like pizzerias, coffee shops, restaurants. You want an M&A advisor that sells businesses, typically 10, 15, $20 million and up. You want to make sure they have a tremendous amount of experience. You want to make sure that they sell businesses in lots of different verticals, that they're industry agnostic. And also, ask them, how do you go about evaluating businesses? What type of buyers do you work with? Have you created bidding wars before? What type of success have you had? How do you keep up with your buyers? Who determines budget? Who determines how much money to spend? Most importantly, Steve, do you charge a retainer fee? There are a lot of advisory firms that charge $5,000 a month, $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 upfront, and they don't sell. Typically they don't sell the business. We are 1,000% results oriented, results driven. We don't charge retainer fees.
And that makes a huge difference, particularly in when a company is looking to enter into the process. It seems like in part, Michelle, what you've done is you really de-risk that part of the transaction for them. That's fabulous.
We do, because I've talked to so many. Look, I've been in this industry, like I said, a little over 20 years. I've been in many different businesses. I've owned many different businesses. And that's another question to ask too. Have you owned any of your own businesses? Because I think it really sets us apart, because I've been there. I've had to make payroll. I've had to sit on the other side of the desk. I've had to sell my own business. I've had to make those tough decisions. And I think it really helps us to, really be able to empathize with the owner, what they're going through, and really be able to provide better service. And I don't think business owners should have to pay a retainer fee. We get paid when we sell the business. And like I said, there's no risk to our clients.
That makes it very attractive to engage. So here's the next question. When looking at EBITDA sales multiples, should one calculate that based on expected synergies with certain buyers, meaning a financial buyer may value at 5x EBITDA, but a strategic or competitor at 8x? Who gets the value of the synergies, the seller or the buyer?
Well, here's the bottom line. We evaluate synergies as the advisor because we've been doing this for a very long time. I said it's more of an art than it is a skill. I mean, than it is a science. Obviously, it's a skill than it is a science. So we come up and evaluate those synergies. And typically it's the buyer, not the seller, because sellers a lot of times will come to us and, they'll say, I want $20 million for my company. And a company has $200,000 in EBITDA. There's no way they're going to get a $20 million price. A lot of our clients have unrealistic expectations of what their business is worth, and they value the business based upon what they need, not based upon what the business is actually worth. But a business is worth what a buyer is willing to pay. Buyers put a value on those synergies of what it means to them and how it's going to help catapult their current company to the next level.
That makes perfect sense. At the end of the day, it's what the market will bear.
At the end of the day, it's what the market will bear. And look, I just showed a case study of a buyer that paid 129% more than the appraised price because the value to them was not so much the business. The value to them was that contract with BP, because
Right.
they knew that once they got their feet in the door, that they would be able to get their products and services in there.
Right. Right. That makes perfect sense. And that's a great example. Michelle, next question. How has the pandemic affected valuations?
So that's a great question. And it really depends. Again, we go back to it depends on the industry, it depends upon the buyer. And there's been a lot of industries that were affected by the pandemic, especially hospitality. But there's so many industries that have had a positive growth because of the pandemic. And they had the best year they've ever had in the history of being in business in 2020. So when we look at valuations, and if they've had the best year they've ever had, we're not going to base the valuation just on 2020 because we know the buyers are not going to do that because that could be an anomaly. We also want to look at 2021. One thing that I didn't mention is when we do evaluations, we also do 3 to 5 year projections. And when we're looking at 2021 and 2021 had the best year ever, 2020 had the best year ever, we want to make sure 2021 is projecting to have high growth as well. If not, then we're going to base that on a 3-year average. So we'll take in consideration 18, 19, and 2020, or we might do 19, 20, 21 if 2021 looks like it's going to be as good as 2020. If the business did not do as well, like we have several industries that did not do as well, in many cases, we're throwing 2020 out. And we're basing it on 2018, 2019, and 2021. And buyers have to understand that. And most do.
Got it. Got it. Michelle, we've got 2 very similar questions here, and maybe you can answer them together. One was, does your company specialize in specific industries? Which ones? And the related question is, what types of business does your company specialize in?
Okay. Yes, you're right. That's very similar. So we're industry agnostic. Like I've said, we've sold over 1,000 businesses pretty much in every vertical you can imagine. So we don't specialize in one industry. However, we have a lot of experience in many industries, and we sell a lot of manufacturing businesses. So we have a tremendous amount of core competency in manufacturing, distribution, staffing, healthcare, business services. I mean, like I said, we pretty much have experience in every industry. And a lot of the fundamentals are the same that I went over as far as business lifecycle, infrastructure, et cetera. They, go from it. They're pretty much the same in every industry, no matter what. Does that make sense? Hope that answers the question.
Well, it certainly speaks to the breadth of your experience, and something that I think was instructive to a lot of our audience is the differentiation you made between a SaaS business and other businesses with respect to how that impacts valuation. Obviously, knowing those idiosyncrasies, knowing how to understand what's important in each vertical, is going to make a huge difference in terms of your exit and your exit valuation.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to, when you're looking for an M&A advisor to represent you, just to make sure that they have experience. Again, the fundamentals are the same, but there are different nuances for a SaaS company versus, manufacturing company and so on and so forth. But a lot of the things are the same as far as infrastructure buyers, et cetera.
Sure. Next question came on one of your cases. Well, what caused the Toys R Us decline? What caused Toys R Us to decline so rapidly?
So I'm not in, so obviously I haven't studied it extensively, and I'm not, I don't have an inside position there, but I would assume several things from being a buyer there, because I have a daughter and I've been shopping there many years.
Right.
Toys R Us never innovated.
Mhm.
What do Toys R Us do differently? So I think it's a combination. And again, this is just outside looking in. It's a combination of lack of innovation. Amazon came to the market. Amazon came to the market. It's so much easier to buy toys from Amazon than it is to go fight the traffic and go into Toys R Us. And even though Toys R Us started selling online, it wasn't really the same experience. So I think it's lack of innovation, lack of leadership, lack of vision, and probably lack of management as well. Probably not functioning on all 6 cylinders.
I can certainly relate to you on the customer experience. I remember many trips to Toys R Us with our kids where we are tripping over other kids, each of them playing in the aisles, that type of thing. You're absolutely right. The whole
And then what's so frustrating is nobody knows anything.
right.
So the employees are, not educated on the toys and especially in the different categories. And it's very difficult to find anybody that knows anything. And it's easier to just go online and then you can read information about the product and get Google reviews, et cetera, make the shopping experience so much easier. So they just need to innovate, kind of like Blockbuster. Blockbuster never innovated. They could have bought Netflix and they didn't. And there's so many stories like that. I think what people don't realize is that it happened so quick. Within 2 years of having $11.5 billion in revenue, and now you're out of business completely.
So next questions come in again related to the pandemic. How has the pandemic affected M&A activity in general?
There is so much M&A activity right now. In fact, it's great and it's frustrating. And the reason it's frustrating is because we have so many businesses that private equity groups and strategics are looking at, but they have so many deals in front of them. They have so many deals in the pipeline. They have so many LOIs under contract that it's hard to them to get to other deals. Like we're selling, a $70 million business that I mentioned earlier, and we have several private equity groups that are very interested. One had to pull out because they have 12 businesses under contract. Another one that visited the company 3 months ago, extremely interested, is going to give us an LOI, but they have 7 businesses they're closing on as we speak. So there's a tremendous amount of activity in M&A, again, for those businesses that have 3, 5, 10, 15, $20 million in EBITDA and up.
But it sounds like the way you were describing it, there's also somewhat of a bottleneck
It's a
with
huge
buyers.
bottleneck.
Yeah, and probably buyers are constrained with respect to the amount of personnel they have to manage the buying process.
Right, because they have a team of analysts and, and they don't have a big team, they might have 1 or 2 analysts and that's it. And then they have one due diligence team. Well, it's very difficult for one due diligence team to work on 7 deals at a time. And most of them just don't have the capacity.
Understood.
I see you reading questions, Steve.
You're right. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour, and there was one more comment that came in, and it's really not a question, but evidently from one of your fans who is also a Harvard Business School person, because I recognize her name. She says, "I was with you in Vegas when that picture was made with Steve Forbes at Freedom Fest. I remember meeting you. You were an awesome pitch tank judge and speaker."
Oh, wonderful. What's her name?
This is from this is from Gina. Just for privacy reasons, I'll leave it at
Oh,
that.
okay.
But we're going to give I'm going to reiterate your email address in just a moment, so she can reach out to you. Oh,
All
and
right.
she just said it's okay to say her name. So this is from Gina Carr, who has
Oh,
been
yeah, I know Gina Carr.
yeah, Gina's been very active with the HBS clubs for a long time. Hi, Gina.
Hi, Gina. Thank you so much. Wish I
No,
could see your face. But thank you so much, Gina. Contact me. Let's stay in touch.
and she's saying hi back. Well, we're approaching, like I say, we're approaching the top of the hour, and let me start by saying, Michelle, thank you so much for that. Again, that incredibly practical and insightful talk about improving your exit valuation by improving your business performance and the 6P method described in Exit Rich. Again, for the audience, you can pre-order your copy of Exit Rich today at exitrichbook.com. And if you have follow-up questions for Michelle, please contact her at the email shown on the screen, which is michelle@seilertucker.com. Again, thanks to Michelle for all of your insights on how to exit rich, something all of our entrepreneurs and investors will want to do. And thank you all for attending the HBS Alumni Angels webinar series. Now, go make it a great day and take care.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Michelle.